Welcome to the Not Just a Pony Ride podcast, presented to you by HETRA University. If you've landed here, you're probably passionate about how horses help people. Whether you're an instructor, therapist, in the business, or have experienced equine assisted services yourself, we're glad you're here. Join us as we talk about the benefits, the science, to-dos, how-tos, and all of the reasons why what we do is so much more than just a pony ride. And now, from the HETRA campus in Gretna, Nebraska, here's your host, Occupational Therapist, Edye Godden.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first official episode of the Not Just a Pony Ride podcast. We're so excited that you're here. This project's been a long time coming, and we're just excited to get started. So, that being said, I'm Katie King. You guys don't know me yet. I'm an occupational therapist, and I work at HETRA. And I have the pleasure of sitting down with me today, Edye Godden. She is an occupational therapist and CEO at HETRA. So she's my boss. We'll see how this goes. Hopefully I don't say anything too incriminating. But we're excited to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you. We're excited about the kickoff of this podcast. And as you said, it's been kind of a long time coming to want to really put some great material out there to the world of equine assisted services.
It's a mouthful.
Yes, it is.
Yes, but there's a lot of us. It encompasses everybody. So if you're listening, you're a therapist, you're an instructor, you're in the business, you're a volunteer. There's a whole group of us.
Or you're interested in starting a program. So that's a lot of people where do I start? How do I get started? Or I've started, now what's my next steps?
Yeah, absolutely. So all of that audience is here. If you just want to learn more about equine assisted services and therapies too, as a potential participant, we're glad you all are here. So Edye, tell us a little bit about HETRA. What makes us qualified to talk about all this stuff on a podcast?
Yeah. So HETRA is, I think, a bit unique in that we started back in 1989. So we have a pretty long history, 30 plus year history of serving the greater Metro Omaha community. And I have been fortunate enough to be with the organization since 1991. So I have really watched and I hope assisted this organization in growing to where it is today. We started where we had one horse and one client and a handful of volunteers. And, we worked through the years to the point now where we have our own 25-acre facility and an indoor arena, and we run year-round programming of all types. We have 12, soon to be 13 full-time staff. So our organization has really grown significantly over the years. And there have been several of us that are still with HETRA that have been with us through a lot of that growth. And I think that's really a neat part of the program as well. And I think that's what we have to offer the community is I can speak from a startup standpoint to a larger organization standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's incredible that our staff has grown from one basically to, and even that, the first person who started it was technically a volunteer, right?
Absolutely. We were all volunteers for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
So we've operated that way.
And our staff, I feel like part of the reason why we have been so successful in a lot of this educational information and platforms is that we as a staff have some who have been there since the very beginning, right? Like you and a handful of others. And then a few who have just come on board and might not even have any equine really experience, like some of our more administrative staff. And together we work together really, really well. So
absolutely. I think here at HETRA, we have the best staff that we've ever had, the best group. We have a great culture and a great team. And I feel like everybody has so much to contribute to where we're going. And as we work forward, we really feel like the team has to be on board with where we're going. And that's the great thing is that we all head in that direction. Everybody's willing to jump in and pitch in. And oftentimes we see those programs and the new things that we want to do come into fruition. One of them being our sensory trail.
Right.
That we just got started, which is really exciting.
That is exciting. Okay, so tell me a little bit about what you see happening with the sensory trail and what it is, if our listeners don't know.
So a sensory trail is an area outside. So at our facility right now, we only ride in our indoor arena. So this will allow us to get our participants outside and to experience all kinds of different sensory feedback. And not only from nature itself, so the sun and the birds and the wind and the smells from outside, but also specific activities that we're going to set up out there. So we have some ball drops, and we'll have some noise, maybe some drums or some bells that will be out there. We'll have maybe different flowers planted, and hopefully we'll have butterflies and all kinds of fun things. So it'll be really a neat experience. The vision for that is going to be, not only can it be something that we can ride our participants through, where they can be on it mounted, but they could also go through the sensory trail on foot or in their wheelchair. So it's something they can do from both sides of things. And then the really exciting aspect, where I think it ties it all back together, is that our life skills participants are the ones that are helping us design and build and put together and maintain the sensory trail. And that to me is what really pulls it together.
Right. That's amazing. So just in that last, 3 minutes of conversation, I've heard about how many different programs that we have, right? So we're not just riding horses out there. We've got quite a few other things happening. So what are our life skills participants doing, and how does that program look?
So our life skills program initially started working with individuals with developmental disabilities, and we are hoping to expand that to include veterans as well as at-risk youth. So some different populations as well. And the program really is designed to work on life skills. So we're working on things like following directions and staying on task, completing a task, building some actual skills. So they work in our tax shack, which is our on-site tax store, and they learn customer service and how to write an invoice out. They learn how to stock and how to count inventory. So there's a wide variety of things that the life skills program will do. They also will do some hands-on things with the horses. We don't do any mounted activities with the life skills program, but they do have interaction with the horses typically every day that they're there. So part of their activities will be helping to not only design and implement the sensory trail, but also to help maintain it, which I think, again, is really a neat aspect of the program.
Absolutely. Learning life skills out there. And is that a weekly program? They're there for a longer period of time during the week, correct?
Yeah. So typically they will come once a week, anywhere from 2 to 3 hours. And they are supervised by one of our occupational therapists, helps to kind of design the curriculum, or our mental health therapist help design the curriculum for the program. And we have really specific goals that we're working on and working towards with those individuals. And they continue to advance their skills as they go through the program.
Great. Okay, so you said that those were led by therapists, so OT, an occupational therapist, and even our mental health therapist. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about what other types of positions we have on our staff and what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So in our programming staff, we have certified therapeutic riding instructors, and some of us wear multiple hats. So we might be a certified therapeutic riding instructor. We might be an occupational therapist. I'm a clinical specialist in hippotherapy as well. And then we have our facility staff. So we have our individuals that manage our facility, as well as our barn maintenance staff who help do things like clean stalls and make sure our facility is up to par. We have our equine operations manager who helps make sure our horses are being well cared for and are prepared to work in our program. We have administrative staff. So we have a development department who helps with our fundraising and our community outreach, our PR, our marketing, things like this amazing podcast, which is awesome, and grant writing. And then, of course, not to forget our volunteer operations manager and our volunteer coordinator who schedule all of our volunteers. We have about 160 to 180 volunteers a week.
Wow. They
do over 26,000 volunteer hours in a year. That's a lot of volunteer hours. So grateful and blessed to have them. But super important that we have somebody that's managing that aspect of the program.
Absolutely. So there is a lot of moving pieces in our organization.
Absolutely. And I think that's what's been really neat to see as we've grown and added staff, is to see how everybody continues to coordinate and work well and really be able to work to their strengths. So, and that's something I can speak from having done it all, from volunteer
Right.
coordinating and horse management to instructing and scheduling students. And it's nice to be able to take off the hats that aren't as a good a fit with you and really focus on the areas that you're really passionate about and you're really good at. And I think that's one of the reasons that HETRA has been as successful as we are, is because people are able to do what they're passionate and what they're really good at.
I can say personally, so I was a occupational therapist in a clinic, pediatric clinic setting, before I came to HETRA full time. And I had been working with you guys part-time for quite a while. And then I started full-time here recently. And I never really believed what people said when they said, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life, you know, and you hear that and you're like, rah, 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 of course. And then I started at HETRA and I'm like, golly, that is true. I mean, honestly, like you come to work and if you love what you do, the stress is so much lower and you enjoy it that much more. So
Absolutely.
I can attest to that. This episode is sponsored by Equiforce. Equiforce is a database that allows you to track every facet of your organization, from horse, donor, and volunteer management to scheduling, grant tracking, incident reports, and tracking participant progress too. This is not a one-size-fits-all setup. Instead, Equiforce personally works with you to learn how your facility functions and takes note of your specific terminology so that they can create a unique system to match the needs of your organization. And of course, Equiforce provides an ongoing training and support so that your database can grow with you. Visit them at www.equiforce.com. That's EQUI-FORCE.com. Okay, so I want to circle back on that for just a second. I was talking about how I love my job and how it doesn't feel like work. And I think that that's two reasons. Number one, I have the best job ever. I come to work, I get to work with horses and kids and adults who love coming to therapy and love coming to participate with me. I get to work with volunteers who are really excited to be there. They're there because they want to, and they want to be a part of HETRA's mission. And that alone makes my job that much more enjoyable. But the second reason is that I have a boss. Edye, you really truly invest in me. I feel like personally, and I feel like professionally, you really care about how I'm doing, you know, what can we do to make my job easier, my job better for me. And I think that alone speaks volumes for how happy I am at work. It's truly, truly amazing what you do with your staff. So I guess I'm curious, how did you get started in, you know, being so good at managing people?
So thank you for that first. Yeah. That's quite a compliment, honestly. I'm truly blessed to have an amazing team at HETRA. I've been with HETRA 30 years now, so it's been a long journey. And from, you know, where we were all volunteers to where we have a staff of almost 13 right now, full-time staff. So it's been an exciting journey. But I really found that if I was going to stay in the leadership position at HETRA, then I needed to work on my skill set there from a leadership standpoint. And I wanted to make sure that I was the best leader that I could be, not only for the people that come, our participants, for our staff and for our volunteers, and certainly for the organization. And I think that's a sustainability point for our organizations, is that making sure that those of us that started with these organizations, passionate about horses or passionate about working with people, we didn't ever think we were going to be leaders, right? We just wanted to do it because we wanted to help people. And then we found ourselves in a growing mix, sometimes of chaos and you're right, having to manage people in situations and sometimes conflict, and figuring out, how do we do that? And I have found that really focusing, having the opportunity to attend some leadership courses myself, really focusing on who I am and knowing who I am and what my strengths are and what my challenges are. And probably one of the best things that I've learned over time is that even with my challenges, it's not things that I can't do. they're just things that take more energy for me to do.
Right.
And so really thinking about that and re-looking at how do I look at my day makes a huge difference.
Yeah. When you first started with HETRA, and you were kind of gifted this position, you're like, thanks. Wow, this is a lot, I bet. Were you a little bit nervous coming into it? I mean, managing people and all of that to get started?
In all honesty, I probably should have been way more nervous and way more worried about all that. I was really excited about an opportunity to combine the two things that I loved the most. And it was a rather small organization, really just getting started. And so I really had no idea what I was getting myself into. And I feel blessed that I had that opportunity and that I've had that opportunity for the past 30 years to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So your staff has grown significantly since you took over. And do you think that the growing pains tell us about the growing pains with growing staff and growing your organization? Because I think that's the goal for everybody, right? It's, they start programs and, you start them small and you want to help people and that kind of thing. And then you want to add programs and you want to, do more marketing, or you want to get out there and do fundraising, and your program's growing and growing. Then you need staff. And then how do you manage all those people?
Yeah. So I very much am a more visionary, conceptual type of person. So I'm really looking at the big picture of where we're going and how we're going there. And although I cannot be more thrilled with the quality and the type of program we offer now, I know we can always offer more and do more. And not every program may want to continue to grow. Some programs may find that they're really happy with where they're at and what they're doing, and that's great as well. But as you grow, as you add staff, being able to develop yourself as a leader and being able, then we are very fortunate and have a lot of young people on our staff. These are the people that are up and coming in our industry, and we have to help develop them as leaders as well, because we want them to stay in the industry and we want them to continue to grow and be able to do that. So I think regardless whether you're a horse manager or you're a volunteer coordinator, you're a program manager and you're an executive director, or maybe you're an instructor that strives to be one of those things, we're all put in a position where we are leaders, and we can either choose to embrace that role and take it on, or we can choose to fight it and not want to do it. But honestly, if you're going to be in this industry, you're going to, I think, have to embrace the role and figure out where you fit, how you work as a leader.
That's right. And I think too, just personally, and you said that it takes a lot of kind of internal reflection and personal exploration too, to be the best leader you can be, which is good for everybody always. I know I've had a lot of bosses, and I think there's something to be said about investing in yourself in that way, for your leadership and for personal growth for yourself to manage people, because I've had a lot of bosses that were great practitioners. They were great therapists, but they didn't manage people very well. So it was hard, the work environment was hard, or they were really good at, managing the finances, but they lacked a little bit in that personal development leadership side. And so it was harder for me to go to work just for that reason. So tell us a little bit about what HETRA is now going to offer, because we have done a lot of webinars, right? Quick plug for that, hetrauniversity.org. Check it out if you want to learn more about, the fundraising and, marketing and that kind of stuff. And I think it's great to continue to do personal development in those areas, especially of programs that you want to grow. But you can be a master at that developing that program. But if you can't manage the people to develop your program, then that makes it hard. So I think this is a super exciting opportunity. I wanted to share it with all of our listeners that you are going to take all of your experience and just awesome stuff that you've developed over working with HETRA in the last, how many years, and you're going to share it with everybody.
Yeah. So we're going to kick off a leadership series here at the beginning of March, and it's going to be an 8-week series, all through a webinar format. I think at this point we're planning to meet on Fridays for an hour to an hour and a half, depending on questions and how much information people are really seeking. I'm excited about it. It's going to be an 8-week course. On top of that, the people who sign up to do it will get 2 personal coaching sessions, and they can decide what member of our HETRA team they would like to coach with. So are they looking more from a horse management, from a volunteer management, program management, executive director, more of an administrative development? So it's going to be really exciting in that they can choose that. But we're really going to look at the leadership skills. What kind of leader are you? And how does that impact the people that you work with? And when you're developing a team, who are you looking for to be on that team? Not only from a skill set, so we need a horse manager, but what kind of characteristics does that horse manager need to have in order to be a good fit? So if we had a whole team of people like me, we would be in a lot of trouble. So I like big picture. I like to get things started. And we have a lot of great people on our team then that are able to take that and kind of get it to the finish line. And so making sure that you have people on your team that complement you and not people on your team that are just like you is super important.
Yeah, I agree. I think that being able to have someone, like you said, to pick up, here's this great idea, pick up the details and run with it. So you have to have 2 types of people there, you're outside the box, big thinking, make some stuff up, and then the people who are excited to participate and work out the nitty-gritty details for sure.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing with nonprofit management and anybody that's coming from a business or corporate world is that we work, at least at HETRA, we work more in a collaborative team effort. And so we make decisions in a collaborative way. There's not very rarely is there a decision that comes down that this absolutely has to be done this way. We work as a team. We make decisions as a team, and then we move forward as a team. And I really feel like for me, that leadership style is what has worked really well for our organization. And it's what's really driven us to the next level. And since 2014, when we had an opportunity to move to the Gretna facility, our organization has increased.
Exploded.
Yeah, it absolutely exploded from the number of programs we offer to the number of people we see to the programming hours and to staff. So when we moved to Gretna, I believe we had 5 full-time staff. That was in 2014. We're in the process of hiring our number 13 full-time staff right now. So that's a lot. That's a lot of growth and a lot of excitement. But and it just takes the organization again to the next level.
Yeah. And I think that growth alone, the growth, speaks for itself, just how we exploded, but also just growing our staff speaks volumes, I think, personally to you as a leader, and people are happy to work here and want to work here. And the culture is just amazing. I have to laugh because we have staff meeting every week on Wednesdays, and they are sometimes long, and it's like a love-hate relationship, and you're like, wow, this meeting's really long. But like you said, it's a team effort, and I have never felt more involved and more just a part of an organization. Like I really feel like my work people are my family, like my work family, and that's exactly for me how you want it to be. And like you said, there's lots of different ways to lead people, right? Absolutely. And people might find a different leadership style that works better for them. When you do your seminar or your series, are you going to cater more towards the type of leadership that you do or we use at HETRA? Or are you going to try to help people kind of tailor what they might work for their organization for them?
I think the biggest thing is figuring out who you are and then how it works best for you. And so to me, there's no exact right type of leader. But you do need to know who you are. You do need to know what your skills are. And then you need to know where do you need to bring in the people to support that, and not be afraid to say, I'm not strong in that area. And that's an area I'd like to bring a staff in to help build, so that you can focus on what you are strong and what you are passionate about. So yeah, it's going to be really more a focus on the individuals that are attending. There's no right or wrong answer. It's really getting to know who you are, There is going to be some development of your skill sets in some directions. But I think when you really open your eyes to who you are, and then you start to look around at your team members and you start to figure out who they are and how they look at the world and how they process things, it gives you really better understanding of where they're coming from and then how to approach them and how to get them on board with the team and where we're going.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. So what are some other just kind of quick, topics that we're going to talk about? You're going to talk about. It's going to be less focused on, how do you develop a program? And like you said, more focused on how do you develop yourself to manage people for those programs?
Right. So we're going to talk about, again, identifying your own
Mhm.
leadership style and then being able to identify the other leadership styles on your team or the characteristics of those people on your team and how they fit.
Mhm.
So that's going to be a part of it. Looking at our own mission and our own strategic plan. So not the organizational strategic plan, but what's my strategic plan and how does that fit in with where we're at from an organizational standpoint? We're going to look at things like sustainability for programs, which I think leadership is super important, and how that fits. I think 2020 showed us how we need to be flexible and to be able to pivot quickly and be able to change and adapt. And I think even without 2020, I think that's one of the things HETRA has been really good at is being able to change and adapt to what our community needs are, and what our strengths are. And I think sometimes we get really tunnel visioned into this is the only thing we can do, and really opening our eyes into what else we can do is important. And again, I think that goes back to leadership. We are going to, have an opportunity to talk a little bit about fundraising and development and who's on your team and why and how do we move that team forward. We're going to talk about things like conflict resolution, because regardless of how amazing your team is, there's going to be conflict. It's natural. It happens. But how you resolve that conflict determines whether or not that team stays functional and working together. And to me, again, that's really important.
Yeah. I know that conflict resolution is not something people don't like to deal with conflict.
No,
People don't even like to talk about conflict resolution. It's like, I don't really want to talk about that. It's kind of a hard thing to talk about. So I'm glad that you're going to do it.
Yeah.
Not me. And I'm excited to learn. So I am a therapist and soon to be instructor, hopefully. But I'm a therapist and I am going to go through the program.
Absolutely.
I'm really, really excited about it. And I am not, a manager or anything within our organization. So what other, you said it's open to really anybody that just wants to develop their skills, right?
Absolutely. You don't have to be an executive director. You don't have to be a program manager, a volunteer coordinator. Our volunteer coordinators, are huge managers of people. I mean, they manage 100 to 200 people, and sometimes in a week. And they're volunteers. And so how they do that is really important because we need those people to keep coming back and keep assisting our organization. So volunteer coordinators, are horse managers. So like you said, the horse manager has a team that they work with, and how effective that team works depends on how effective and how we can run our program.
Yeah.
And so really it's really open to anybody that just really wants to look at, where they're at and how they move forward. And I know when I look back over my time that probably early on in my career, if this had been offered to me, I'd have been like, I'm too busy. I'm wearing 1,000 hats. I am the volunteer coordinator. I am the program scheduler. I am the instructor. I am the therapist. I am all of those things. I don't have time to work on my leadership skills. But I feel like you have to make that time in order to do that if you want to see your organization go to the next level. And I think it's important because I think we see a lot of organizations, like I said, get started with people who are really passionate, and then we lose those people. And it'd be nice to have them stay in our industry and continue to contribute.
Yeah. So Edye, sitting at the table with me right now, would call Edye 15 years ago and say, you should take this leadership course.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So how can people find it if they're interested?
So it will be up on our website, and I am sure we also will be doing some social media pushes for it as well.
Yes.
But we hope to have it up, I think, early next week. So that'll be beginning of February. It should be up on the website. It'll have some details on what the individual classes will be. You can audit as well. So if you don't want to attend in person, the webinars that are going to be on Friday afternoons, or you can audit it for, I think it's going to be $100. That'll allow you to audit the 8 sessions. It won't really allow you to do the coaching sessions or be able to ask questions, those types of things, if you really want to get in depth and delve into it. We'll also be sharing a lot of resources. So a lot of resources that I found helpful. And then I'm really excited to learn from other people. So whenever you do something like this, you learn from the other people that are in the course, and what works for them, what's been successful for them. So we'll have some more resources, I'm sure, just within the group that goes through.
All right. So with all of these staff members and all of these volunteers, what does a typical day look like at HETRA? Of course, that's a loaded question because it changes all the time, but a typical day, what kind of programs or what kind of things are people doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So of course, first thing in the morning, we have our, either our volunteers or our facility staff or horse staff that are on site feeding horses and taking care of them.
How big is our herd?
About 25 horses typically. We have everything from drafts to miniature horses, and everything in between. And then horses get fed, parking lot gets worked, the arena gets worked. Our volunteers start coming to help with barn maintenance. Usually mid-morning, our session volunteers start to come and help get set up for sessions to start. We do daytime sessions. Our life skills program is often there on several days a week in the morning. And then we move into the afternoon. That's where our heavier scheduling happens. So between 4 and 8 p.m. is when the arena is really busy. And then wrapping back up again, ending with feeding the horses, making sure that they're all well taken care of and where they need to be. And then last thing of the day, our equine operations manager makes a final walkthrough of the barn to make sure everybody's settled in and everybody's doing okay.
Wonderful. That's a busy schedule. And we, at almost nearly every part of that schedule, I hear a lot of assistance from volunteers. And HETRA is a nonprofit, correct?
Correct.
And so we really focus on that volunteer work, and that helps us get from A to B. How else, you mentioned fundraising and grants and that type of thing. How's HETRA meeting the bottom line? What does that look like?
Again, we couldn't do it without our volunteers. Absolutely. When you talk about having 160 to 180 volunteer shifts a week, that's huge. And a lot of times we have volunteers who will fill multiple shifts, which again is amazing. We spend a lot of time training those volunteers to make sure that they're trained. Safety is, of course, always our number one priority. So really, between the volunteers and then the staff, we know what our goals are. We know what we're looking to achieve. We know who we are looking to impact in the community. Mm-hmm. And I think this comes back a little bit to me to the Not Just a Pony Ride. So having been involved in HETRA for a very long time, not since the get-go, but for a very long time, I'm always amazed at, we have, I think, a pretty good community presence at this point in time. A lot of people know what we do, but I'm always amazed to still hear some people say that they're surprised about the physical benefits of what's happening out at HETRA. When we talk about, improving balance or improving gait patterns or improving range of motion, they're surprised to hear that because they really thought it was more the feel good, the pony ride. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of where the podcast name came from, Not Just a Pony Ride, because we really want to focus on the physical, the mental, psychological, cognitive, and social benefits that are occurring out at the facility and in the programming that we offer.
You're absolutely right. And the name and this podcast was kind of your brainchild. And I think it's something we talk about a lot, especially as therapists, is exactly what you said, that the physical, social, cognitive benefits are so much more than people even know. Why do you think that got started? Kind of like, it's just a pony ride. They're just having fun. Do you think that it stemmed from somewhere?
I do. And actually, one of the things I often say is it's therapy without being therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So our participants don't often know if they're in the therapy services programs that they're coming out there to get therapy, because they're coming out there to ride their horse and have fun.
Right.
And so, and I love that. I mean, absolutely, because so many of our participants have been in therapy maybe their whole life.
Mm-hmm.
If they were born with a disability, they may have been in therapy their whole life. And they're tired of going to the clinics. Not to say there's anything bad about clinics. Obviously, there's a lot of great things that happen there, but they want a different experience. And being able to come out and do something with the horses, being able to go back to school and say, I ride a horse. Being empowered to say, I ride a horse. I ride a 1,200-pound horse, and I control that horse by myself, which a lot of our participants ride independently. It's just, there's a lot of really cool things that happen. So I think that's, people see the smiles and they see how much they're enjoying it. And they don't necessarily see the physical benefits because it happens over time. Mm-hmm. And, but it is truly amazing when I look at the physical benefits of what's happening.
Yeah, it gave me goosebumps just talking about it, and I do it every day. So I already know when it gives me goosebumps. So that being said, with this podcast, I mean, our goal is really to get out there. What are the benefits? What are we doing out there? We're not just walking around in circles. We're doing lots of really cool things. What would you like to see topic-wise and, guest-wise even? What would you like to see going forward in the podcast?
So I think one of the things is we don't just randomly choose a horse and a saddle and a activity. It's very calculated in what we decide and how we decide to do things with our participants. So I think talking a little bit about that, I certainly think about talking about the horse's movement and how it impacts the participant. I think talking about the different activities that we challenge her. So it might look like that participant is just playing a really fun game of basketball, but we're working on a lot of other skills. Mm-hmm. And so I think when we can break that down for people, they really will start to understand that it is not just a pony ride, mm-hmm. that there's so many other benefits that are happening out there.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, I'm excited to really start digging deep into a lot of those topics and those activities that we do. Like you said, breaking down a simple game of basketball, it looks easy, but I mean, we could talk for forever about anything, but especially about the benefits for our participants and our patients. So very good. Well, we're getting kind of close on time here. So let's wrap up. Is there anything that you want to say to our listeners on our very first episode ever?
Well, I would just say again, welcome, and we're excited. We're excited to go along on this journey with people. We're excited to share our knowledge and also learn from others, because certainly there's a lot of very knowledgeable people in this industry, and we're excited about what this has to offer. So it's not going to be just HETRA people that will be on our podcast. Hopefully we'll have some other guests that will share their knowledge and their experience in the field. So that's what I'm really excited about. I'm excited about watching this field continue to grow and continue to really gain some traction with people fully understanding what the importance of it is.
Absolutely. I think getting the word out that hippotherapy, adaptive riding, all of the programs that we offer the benefits are real and they're here. Mm-hmm. And we're here to tell everyone about it, everyone who wants to listen. So, all right. So my last question for the day is, you can choose. Either tell me about your heart horse, mm-hmm. or you can tell us what you think your spirit animal would be and why.
Oh, I have been blessed to have a lot of heart horses over the years. Not only that I've owned, but that have been a part of HETRA. Mm-hmm. There's been so many amazing horses that I've had the opportunity to partner with and work with. Probably the one that's been most impactful was named Odie. He was my youngest sister's show horse. So he took her through the show pen for a lot of years. And then My daughter showed him when she was young, and he was the type of horse that you could send into the pen and he would keep her out of any kind of trouble. You're like, why is he now not walking? What's he doing? And he's like, oh, he's staying out of that rack. Oh, good boy. Good boy. I don't know how many of our initial instructors did their initial testing on him because he was just a steady Eddie. How many of our participants learned to ride independently on him because he was just that trustworthy. He was a pretty special horse. Probably one of the things that always kind of grabbed my heart with him is that whenever somebody would get off and dismount, he would take, and he was a big horse. He was 16 hands, so he was a big boy. He would take his head around and he would look all the way around and just look right at the person who just got off to say like, hey, we did a pretty good job today.
Good ride.
So he's probably the most special one. A lot of people that have been with HETRA for a long time would know who Odie was, and he made a lot of impact.
Oh, that's sweet. And you said your daughter showed him.
Yes.
Okay, so y'all are a big show family, right?
Well, we like to show horses.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what color was Odie? Everyone's dying to know.
Of course he was Palomino.
Of course he was Palomino, she says. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Edye. It was really fun. And I'm sure we will see you or hear you again on this podcast. So don't go too far. But thank you, everyone, for listening, and we'll be back soon. This podcast is presented by HETRA University, an educational arm of the Heartland Equine Therapeutic Riding Academy. HETRA University's mission is to provide high-quality educational offerings to our participants and the equine-assisted services community. Craving more content like this? We invite you to check out our series of webinars and much, much more over at hetrauniversity.org. If you'd like to help us work toward our mission, you can make a donation by clicking on the link in the show notes below or visit us at hetra.org. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Again, my biggest thanks to you all for helping HETRA change lives one stride at a time.